few days ago, I posted this tweet. I was just making a joke about how I hate waking up early and kind of blew up. So I received a lot of questions in my Twitter DMs about how I became a USRN, and although I have a more in-depth video on how I did that, which you can also check out here, I decided that I'll go over the highlights of that process as well as answer all the other questions I received regarding nursing school and adjusting, etc. So let's do this Q&A. A lot has changed since my last video. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Ione. I am 21. Despite my baby face, I know I look like I am in elementary school still. I was born in the US to two full Filipino parents. Both my parents are Bisaya speaking, so I understand all the Tagalog questions. I'm just not gonna reply in Tagalog. Let's just stick with English. I grew up here in the state of Nebraska, and then when I turned 16, I went to Cebu and I attended nursing school at Cebu Doctors University College of Nursing. I graduated at the top of my class with the University Award of Cum Laude, so that was pretty cool. So since that last video, I am working. I started on a medical surgical oncology floor about 2 months ago. I have Twitter pulled up here on my iPad since I'm filming with my iPhone right now. And quick note about the iPhone glow up that a lot of people liked to point out. I had the iPhone 8 for like 3 years, and then my parents let me get the iPhone 12 as a graduation gift. So yes, my iPhone did glow up. Thank you to all the people for noticing. I'm just gonna go ahead and scroll through my DMs, scroll through the replies, and just answer all the stuff that came up. Sorry in advance if this video is kind of messy and I'm jumping all over the place. I just came from the hospital, that's why I'm wearing scrubs right now. I had a 1-hour little training session, and then I worked the whole weekend, 2 12-hour shifts, so my brain's a little, but I'm gonna try my best to make this Q&A as clear and helpful as I can. And disclaimer, the things that I'm going to say are just based off my own experiences as well as talking to my friends, some who are Filipino American like me, or Filipino visa green card holders here in the US, as well as friends who are pure Filipino, no US status at all, who were able to come to the US and work eventually. Question number 1, and probably my most asked question: how was I able to go from being a Filipino nursing student who graduated in 2020 to being a USRN this year? The reason I was able to come straight here to the US is because, like I mentioned, I am a dual citizen. With that being said, I think most US states don't require any prior experience as long as you are a US citizen or existing visa holder. So I didn't have to work at all in the Philippines. I was able to come straight to the US and start the process, which again, I talk about in depth in this video. It involves going through CGFNS to evaluate your university transcripts and then applying to a state board of nursing so that you may take the NCLEX. And I want to say that this video of mine is applicable to not only dual citizens like me or visa holders, but also full Filipinos who have already had their 1 to 2 years necessary experience, because everyone who's an international nursing graduate is going to have to go through CGFNS, and most states require a credentials evaluation service report. And so if you want to see how I did that, it's all in this video. It's like 20 minutes long. I went very in detail. How do you become a US registered nurse? I've already addressed how I did it as a dual citizen, but if you mean in general, like from the perspective of a Filipino citizen without ties to the US, let me just tell you what my friends did who are in the same position. I'm not claiming to be an expert on this topic, I just did a lot of research, and again, I have friends who have done this exact thing, which is that you do need between 1 to 2 years of work experience in the Philippines if you're planning to go abroad and go to the US, and that's just because of visa requirements. And the visa is what's going to allow you to even, step foot in the US and get a job. So I'd say step 1 is get some work experience in the Philippines in a hospital preferably. And step 2 is while you're doing that, you could go ahead and apply with CGFNS and get them to evaluate your credentials, because when they issue a CES report, that's going to be valid for 4 years. So once you have that, you can apply to the state of your choice and take the NCLEX, because again, in order to simply sit for the NCLEX exam, and you can take this in Manila, by the way, there's one testing center there, you don't have to have the work experience. The work experience comes into play when you're applying for a visa now and you're ready to go abroad, but just to get the title of USRN, you don't need work experience, at least as far as I know. There are states that don't require a social security number to sit for the NCLEX, and at the top of my head, Texas, but I'm gonna list here other states. You can try to Google this as well. So again, to recap, you have taken the Filipino nursing licensure exam, you have 1 to 2 years of experience at least in a Filipino hospital, you've applied with CGFNS and gotten a CES report, meaning your nursing school transcripts are okay, you've taken the NCLEX exam, and then the 5th step would be to take the English proficiency exam as well. And there's 2 that I know of. It's the IELTS and the TOEFL, something like that. That's just gonna make sure that you are proficient enough to communicate with patients in English. Then I think the 6th step would be to go through CGFNS again and obtain the visa screen service. It's gonna be a combination of all those things I listed. As long as you check those boxes, you should be issued a visa screen certificate, and that's what you're gonna present to the embassy when you apply for a visa to go abroad. And I will say that there are agencies, staffing agencies, that walk you through this whole process. I can't think of a single person who did it all independently. I don't even know if it's possible to do that, because these agencies are going to be the ones to find you a job, a hospital in the US, and connect. I hope that answers your question. I'm not an expert, again. I'm just sharing with you what I know my purely Filipino citizen friends did in order to become working US registered nurses. Another popular question, did I take the Philippine Nursing Licensure Exam, or the PNLE? I'm part of the graduating class of 2020 who got affected by COVID. The PNLE kept getting delayed. I was set to start review for the PNLE to take it in May of 2020, but the pandemic happened and I just decided to go back to the US to be with my family and take the NCLEX instead, since the state I took NCLEX in, which is the state of Texas, doesn't require that I take the local boards. There are states, however, in the US that want you to have taken the local boards, and also if you are a Filipino citizen, no visa, and you are going to later on apply for a visa to come to the US, they will require that you take the PNLE. So I didn't have to take it, but I wanted to take it. It just didn't work out that way. So, are there subjects needed to be taken to become a registered nurse in the US? Short answer is no, not necessarily. When you go through CGFNS, this company is going to take your Philippines nursing school transcript and evaluate it and determine if it's just like US nursing school. From personal experience, a bachelor's degree in the Philippines is usually equal to a US degree, so you shouldn't have to take extra classes. The exception that I know of is the state of California. They're a little stricter with when you got all your labor and delivery cases, for example, and your OR cases, and so I just know that in California you might have to take an extra semester of class in the US in order to meet those deficiencies, but California aside, your Filipino bachelor's degree should be fine when you transition to the US. Are you real? I am real. I'd like to think I'm real. Hi. Another question, what was it like to transition from, being a Filipino nursing student to working in the US? It's a very big transition. It's a very big adjustment. My first 2 months orienting at a hospital here in the US, I learned a lot. Some procedures I'd say are done a little differently here than what I've seen in hospitals in Cebu, just because technology is different. And charting, for example, at my hospital that I did duty at as a student, we had clipboards or binders with papers, and the vital signs were all charted by hand with different colored pens, whereas in the US it's a computer and there are electronic hospital systems that you will type in the vital signs and all your patient assessments. So the transition is hard, but definitely doable. You just have to have this mindset that you are willing to learn, and it's gonna be hard and scary, but at least in my experience, all my coworkers have been so amazing. My preceptor has been so kind and patient and willing to teach me. And so to answer the question, you know, the transition, the adjustment, it's hard and it's stressful, but entirely doable. I think it's even more doable if you already had like 2 years of experience working as a registered nurse in the Philippines, because by then you would have already learned how to start IVs, etc. Whereas I was just a nursing student, so I wasn't able to actually start IVs in nursing school, and the first time I started any IVs was here in the US. So how did I review for the NCLEX? So gonna refer to this video again. And basically, I did not use a review center. I studied on my own at home using UWorld, Mark K Audios, and Simple Nursing YouTube. And I reviewed and sat for the NCLEX in the US. Now I'm just kind of scrolling through the replies to the tweet. How much is the rate of a nurse in the US? Nurses deserve so much more than they make in the Philippines. So just know if you come to the US, you will be much more properly compensated for your services. I also love all the comments from people saying that, you know, this is the glow up they wanted, manifesting, sana all, RN cutie. I'm really glad that I can inspire you guys, because nursing is hard. Nursing school is a struggle. Just the whole process is very, very draining. So keep manifesting. Just know I'm rooting for you guys to get that degree and then get that license. I got a couple of DMs asking what's my biggest piece of advice I could give to aspiring nursing students and aspiring US registered nurses. And this is going to sound cliche, but hear me out. You need to find what motivates you, honestly. Yes, studying really hard is a big part of it, making the grades, but before the studying comes the motivation to want to read 50 pages of your textbook, to want to memorize the steps of your return demonstration. In order to get those grades, you need to have the reason why you're putting yourself through the trauma and the stress. Nursing is not for the weak, and this profession and the journey to becoming a registered nurse did make me stronger. So just remember the saying, this too shall pass. And I had plenty of times that I was breaking down as a nursing student, crying while making my requirements for the next day, and anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I had all of that, but you just have to keep pushing through. If this is what you want, then chase after it, and don't be deterred if you take delays along the way. If you fail a class, you have to repeat it, or if you fail a post-test or a pre-test or a midterm or a final, in the long run, 20 years from now, when you are a US registered nurse or Canadian RN, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are planning to go, or whether you want to just stay and serve the Philippines as well, no one's gonna ask you if you took anatomy twice. Let me know what else you want to see. I have, okay, the lighting just changed. If you want to see study tips, how I studied in nursing school, how I got a job in the US, just leave me a comment below, and I want to try to make more videos since there's a lot more of you watching now. Thank you to everyone who shared my tweet and replied with things like, congratulations, manifesting, you're my inspiration, etc. It makes me really happy that I can be that person for at least someone else in the world, because I had my own inspirations to get me through nursing school, and we've all just got to help each other. So until next time, Bye.